Hey there! So where we left off, we had a semi-functional next button where you tap on it and nothing happens, but it does show up whenever you tap on any of these buttons. So let's get the next button working. What actually needs to happen here is that this next button, all it really needs to do is it needs to control the question number. And then the question number will control what is shown on screen. Okay? Your instinct might be to have it such that the next button will control what's shown on screen directly, but that's very difficult because this thing over here is not where you actually put your questions on screen. Okay, so I'm going to show you an indirect way of changing the question, and the first thing you need to do is you're going to say question number equals question number plus 1. Okay, you've seen this before in the counter code. It's just incrementing the question number by 1. All right. So what happens now? Let's try it out. So if I tap on this, and it just disappears. Okay, why is that? Because over here, if question number equals to 0, we display that question. But if it's not 0, then this entire chunk of code does not get rendered. Okay, so it's very easy to spot visually. If you want to see the next question, well, you're going to have to make a new next question. So let's do that. So else if question number equals to 1, remember we are counting from 0. Okay, well, then we need to go add another question over here. So I'm going to copy and paste this. Copy and paste. Let's come up with another Swift question. I think I know. Right. Who wrote Gulliver's Travels? Okay, so who wrote Gulliver's Travels? Let's mix it up a bit. Maybe not have the first one be correct. Maybe Tim Swift. And is correct is false. Let's have the correct answer be here. Jonathan Swift. Okay, so that's correct. That's the author of Gulliver's Travels. Maybe this is Joe Swift, and that's false. And this is Taylor Swift, and that's also false. Okay, so this question isn't showing on screen right now because what we did was we updated our code, and every time you update your code, there's a very good chance that SwiftUI will re-render the screen, especially if you make any changes to a state variable. Okay, so it's reset our entire app. And what we're going to do now is we're going to start from the beginning, try and figure out what's going on. Okay, so the first thing that you see is that, okay, question number is 0. We're going to see this code over here. And I'm going to tap on this. It says you are correct. I'm going to tap on next question. And there you go. Okay, who wrote Gulliver's Travels? All right. Now, you might have noticed that there are some other things we need to do. It shouldn't say you are correct, and it shouldn't let me go to the next question. Right. Think about where you would reset all this. Okay, how would you reset all this and where would you do it? Pause for a moment, see if you can figure it out. And I'm going to give you the answer. It's down here. Okay, inside this button's action, the code that runs when next question is tapped, you should also say, well, you know what? You yourself should be hidden. So show next button equals to false, right? Once you're tapped, you should hide yourself. And you should say that the correct or wrong message is now nothing. We reset it back to an empty string so that for the next question, they will actually see a different thing. Okay, so let's take a look. So the errors were correct. I'm so clever. Excellent. Next, who wrote Gulliver's Travels? Taylor Swift. You are wrong. Okay, so there we go. All right, so now we actually have a working quiz, and you can probably extend this to any length. But before that, there's a little bit more I'd like you to do. Okay, let's tap on next question. Right, it's completely blank, and that's not great. So what I'm going to do for now is I'm going to have an else statement here that says text. The quiz is over. In the next video, we will spend a little bit of time keeping track of the user score and actually displaying it on screen. Okay, so let's test it out. The errors tour. Next, Jonathan Swift. Next, the quiz is over. Okay. One thing you might notice though, if you're going to try and add new questions, it's going to be a bit of a pain because you're going to have to copy and paste about 15 lines of code, maybe like line number 25 to 37 or so. Okay. and you're going to paste it and change a bunch of things. Wouldn't it be better if we could just have a function that represents this entire question? And yes, of course, that's better, and we're going to do that right now. Okay, so very similar to what we did over here. Let's give this a comment, right? Show a single option. And now we're going to have another function over here. And this function is got to be after the previous function, but before var body sum view. Show a single question. Okay, so for this, I'm going to say func question. And what does a question take? Well, it's got the title. Well, it's got 4 options, right? It's got the titles of 4 options. So I'm going to say option 1, string. Option 2, string. Option 3, string. Option 4, string. And finally, it still needs to know which one is the correct answer. So I'm just going to say correct option int. Okay, so we're going to ask the user to enter 1, 2, 3, or 4 as the correct answer. Now, let's go paste that giant chunk of code over here that says question and text. All right, let's just cut this entire thing. Maybe don't cut it yet. All right, just copy. Okay, we're going to paste it down here. And to make life a little bit easier, I'm going to turn off the preview. That's where I realized that I forgot to set a return value. Okay, so for any of these functions where you take code that is used for rendering on screen, you have to give it back a return value of some view. Okay, and then it gives an error. The error actually says over here, well, you know what? It declares an opaque return type, something about underlying type. The reason why this is an error is that you're trying to return 3 different things, and the function can only return 1. So the best way to fix this, at least the best way I figured out, is to group them together in a VStack. Okay, so I'm going to type VStack, and I'm going to go to the end of the final H stack and press close curly brace. Notice how it fixes the indentation for me, and that fixes the problem. All right, so what this means is that each one of these questions will exist in its own VStack, and it's perfectly fine to put a VStack inside another VStack. No problems at all. Okay, great. The last thing we need to do is to make the views in here have generic results. So instead of having the specific question here, I'm just going to change this to title. And this one, I'm going to change this to option 1. This part's a little bit tricky. Okay, this one, you have to make it generic, right? No matter what question and what option you get, this particular option has to behave correctly. So you can't actually just put true or false over here. You do have a clue though. You're going to receive the correct option as an integer, and all you need to do is say, okay, is the correct option equals to 1 in this case. Okay, if the correct option is 1, this entire statement here evaluates to true. If it's not, it evaluates to false. And what we've done is we've just made this into a more generic version of our function. So let me just continue this. Think about it, see whether you can make it make sense, right? Correct option equals to 2. The key thing over here is that this statement will evaluate to either true or false, depending on what information you receive from the function that calls you. Right, so option 3, correct option equals to 3. And finally, option 4, correct option equals to 4. Okay, so now we have a single function that will display a question. Let's try and use it over here. And what we can do is we can just type question and press enter. And there's a lot of autocomplete. So I'm just going to type out my questions again. Okay, so I wish my tab key worked. I'm not sure what's going on with it, but if your tab key works, you can press tab and it'll bring you to the next one, and you can just type it in. Right, so I'm just going to say the errors were over here. The syntax errors were. I missed out on brackets, but that's fine. This one, if you press enter, you'll just accept string, which is not correct. The aromas were, and the last one is Actually, you know what? I'm going to change it up a bit. I'm going to move the correct answer to the last option, the Eras Tour. Okay, and up here, I'm going to change this to the Areas Tour. And I'm going to say the correct option is actually 4 now. Okay, and this lets me delete a lot of code, which is fantastic. So I'm going to delete all this code down here. Okay, and our content view now becomes a lot shorter because it's just, okay, if the question number is 0, display this particular question. Okay, I can do the same thing for my Gulliver's Travels question, but I want to test it out real quick. Right, let's take a look. So now you notice that, hey, the order has changed because option 1 is now Areas Tour and option 4 is now Eras Tour. And if I tap on Eras Tour, excellent, it'll say you are correct. If I tap on Areas Tour, it'll say you are wrong. All right, so at this point, you have enough to create a full quiz app, and I'd like you to go ahead and make a whole bunch of questions. Okay, so you can have maybe like 3 or 4 questions by the next video, where we will show you how to extend your quiz just a little further. Make sure you use this format for the question, the one with the function that we just defined, rather than retyping out all the text and H stack and options. Okay, all right, I will see you in the next video.